let's define
Should
what
we
a high
also
value man is.
mention how this started from last show or no?
No, they know.
Okay, cool.
They do.
Trust me. There's
All
20,000 people they know.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So let's define high value man. Who wants to take the first crack at it so everyone at the table can agree what it is?
I'll go if you
Right,
guys
go
want me to go. So, of course, everybody wants to like nail me on what's a high value man. Okay. So I could have said this on our last engagement here is that a high value man is the man that other men want to be and other women want to fuck. That's straight out of I think it was my third book or my second book. Okay. That's too broad a definition, I think. So I could have just simply said that. People ask me all the time in the tweet or on Twitter and social media afterwards, like, why didn't you just simply say that? Okay. Well, problem with that is because once you get past that, it's a little bit too broad of a definition. So I did a little bit of homework on the way over here on the plane. And we generally go to, the female delusion calculator on our show. And you guys have used the female delusion calculator as well. So what is a high value man? Well, we've asked that question quite a bit from pretty much every girl that we've had on our show. Now, should it be defined by women? Maybe, maybe not, but there's a criteria there that forms the basis, I would say, like just the core principle of what is a high value man. So when we go through that, we go and we say, okay, well, how tall is that guy? How much money does that guy make? What is his, is he obese? Is he like, and there's very specific, details that go into that, and then through that we say, okay, well, that represents what, like 0.02% of the population.
Yeah, I mean, if you're specific, we're talking about the GSS survey, or not the GSS,
no, CDC,
the CDC stuff,
and census stuff. So we always, and you guys do the same thing when we are looking to establish what is a high value man, at least as far as what women are looking for at that time. And I'm not saying that there's another definition for guys as well. As I said, it's other men want to be, and other women want to have sex with.
So what parameters would you?
Exactly. Good question. Now, you guys, right around the first year of your show here, you had Kevin Samuel sitting right here, and one of the things he said is that the guy must make something like $10,000 a month, I believe is what it was.
Roughly, yeah.
Roughly. So that comes out to $120,000 a year. Mm-hmm. Can we agree that if you make $120,000 a year, would that make, like, as far as money is concerned, would that make you a high value guy?
I think it depends on where you are. Like if you're in Manhattan, I think that would be problematic. If you're in Wichita, Kansas, that's a lot of money.
Okay, so
I think, can we hit? I'll give a very broad definition. I think we can all agree on this. I think in the broadest sense, when we talk about men, we talk about what a high value man is. We think about what men are designed to do. Mm-hmm. I think that a high value man is somebody that can partition or acquire a lot to resources.
Okay,
in the broadest of senses, and that can be done in a lot of ways.
Do we want to put a specific number on those resources?
I think a lot is relative, so it's going to be more than your fellow guy. Right, so if you make $120,000 a year in Kansas, you're the fucking king.
Correct.
True. If you make 120,000 years in San Francisco, your neighbor is probably a crackhead. Right?
Yeah. So it just depends on your argument last time was the subjectivity of what you were saying, and that's the thing. And no matter what number we say is a subjectivity. For me, high value man is going to be the guy who puts fitness first. He's going to have a job that's scalable, where he's doing something that he loves, and he's going to have his options on what woman that he can date. Now, if you were to look at that and say, like, for instance, I like Grego Gallagher. I'm a big fan of How to Beast. Brandon Carter is a buddy of mine. Wes Watson. Goggins, what's his name? Jocko Willink. Those guys I consider to be high value men. The thing is, though, if Grego Gallagher is dating a woman with breast implants and fucking plastic surgery, another person who has different religious beliefs is going to be like, no, that's haram. That's bad. So that's the thing. It's the subjectivity of it.
Sure. I think important to keep in mind is when we say value, we're implying some sort of exchange between multiple people. So like a moral man or a virtuous man might be way different than a high value man. We can all probably think of people that are very virtuous or moral.
Wouldn't someone virtuous who goes by the Quran then have a different definition? Like, for instance, you guys had an argument before about family creation. If somebody, several of those guys I just mentioned, they are not interested in family creation. They're interested in being the most attractive versions of themselves they can be. So you would have one person say, this is not a high value man. They would call that person a joke. And another guy would be like, yo, man, I have been used by women my whole life. I've been broke my whole fucking life. And I see this guy and he's fucking killing it. That's a high value man. The subjectivity of it is like something like when you...
I don't think it's as subjective as you're making it. I don't think religious people would really disagree about that. I just don't think that, and this is where red pill kind of hits the wall, because it doesn't go past just how much money you make. So,
yeah, like I think something that's really important.
That's just one aspect of what a high
the subjectivity part comes in, I think, when it comes to, if we use my broad definition of resource acquisition, the subjective part is, what do you need to acquire resources? So for instance, we say fitness, right? fitness could be a proxy for acquiring resources. If you're hunting in the wilderness, a more fit guy can climb a tree, kill a bear, whatever. Yeah. But in some societies, fitness isn't a proxy for how much money you make, right? I imagine that on average, there's probably a lot of really wealthy people that are not, I don't know how much Bill Gates can bench press, right? But for resource acquisition, he's very, very, very valuable. So, and then also, I think we have to keep in mind, when I say high value, and I know Rollo likes to do this a lot, and so I'm going to try to play in this realm. I'm not trying to morally load any of these words. A high value man. So this question got asked, right?
You mean just supply and demand?
Yeah. So Epstein was a high value man.
Yeah, okay.
But obviously morally a horrible character,
of course,
right?
Okay.
And there's going to be a lot of high value people that have a lot of value in society in terms of how much resource they can demand, right? Or Genghis Khan or whatever, who are morally deplorable people. And there's going to be a lot of very morally righteous people, virtuous people, who don't really possess a lot of value. Maybe it's a carpenter, or maybe
if
it's
I can intervene real fast. I think one thing that we can all agree to, right, is I agree that it's immoral, right? A guy being high value. So it could be someone
or amoral.
Amoral. It could be, someone that's good or bad. But I would say this: respected by peers, has a skill set, he has a network of successful men around him, and we could say $100,000 per year. But let's say if you make $100,000 per year, and let's say like maybe a Kansas living type quality.
Sure. So those are all subjective, but we'd all probably agree in the West.
So
that'll get you to probably.
So I would say we'd agree on the vector.
That comes closer.
Yeah, sure.
We'd agree on the vector.
True.
And you seem to be agreeing with Myron now, but you also said last time that Elon Musk is not a high value man. Ben Shapiro
from a particular context, no, he's not.
From what context?
Well, from the context that he is not married. Is a high value man married?
That has nothing to do with being married or not.
Well, it does to the definition that other people.
Do you think other people think that being a high value man would have some correlation to being married and having kids?
I would say
some people would say
because the tweet that I made, everybody had a very big problem with not focusing on family creation or not getting married. So is a high value man married?
People saw it as advice. Like
I think for the purpose of this debate, we want to probably keep it as simple as possible, so that it isn't extremely nuanced definition. I think if the person is married or not, should it matter? I think it should be on things that we can all mutually agree, like,
or how about we can agree that a person of high value probably has the ability to get married and have a lot of children, but they might not necessarily.
If they choose not to do so, that's on them. Yeah. And going back to the morality, I think that's a fantastic point. Even though someone like Epstein is a deplorable individual, on paper, he had a network of net worth people. He had politicians in his pocket. He had quite a bit of money. He had a skill set.
He probably had a vasectomy too.
Yeah, probably.
Shout out to the CIA. Shout out to the CIA.
By now, I would hope so by now.
He did have a skill set, and he earned a good amount of money. So on paper, he's a high value guy, and I think that's something that we can all agree to. So we can. Fair enough. Okay, so we'll go off of respected by peers, has a skill set, network of other successful people around him. Morality doesn't matter, and we could say $100,000, if not more. And when we talk about $100,000, we don't mean $100,000, but we mean the ability to live in a certain way. Fair?
Cost of living adjustment.
Yeah, cost of living adjustment. Fair
consistently.
Can I take? Oh, you're probably going to say that. You're probably going to say the same thing I'm going to say.
Go ahead.
Okay, so but he also has to be useful.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Utilities.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
competency. Yeah.
Right. So there's a competency. So is a high value man educated?
So competency again is going to be valued by society. So for instance, I can change a light bulb, but I can't fix a toilet. So my competency in the household is going to be relatively low. But as an entertainer, my competency is very high. That happens to be valued by society right now. And in another society, I might just be left for dead in the woods. So competencies and same.
So again,
you can probably find
who's doing the
exactly. You can find the best hunter possible in sub-Saharan Africa and bring him to the United States, and he's not going to do shit.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't think education has to be a component. I think if they're like a doctor,
education could be a way towards competency. There's lots of different ways you can build competency. Right?
Okay. Cool. So does that fair with all you guys?
Yeah, competency.
So one more time. So just to define for the audience here. When we talk about high value guy, we're talking about someone that's respected by the peers, has a skill set, has competence, has a network of other successful men that respect them, and we'll say $100,000 per year, bare minimum, based on living a certain way. Not necessarily $100,000 per se, but $100K per year, just so you guys have a placeholder. Now we go into alpha male. I mean, I don't use this. We don't use this term that often, but I mean, just for the purpose
of space, use it a lot.
Well, that's why we're talking about high value male, because that's kind of what has replaced alpha male over the years. Like when I first started writing, it was all about alpha, and then like right around 2017, 2018, everybody started using high value male.
So do you guys want to just use HVM as the same?
Yeah, I'm gonna fight.
I think Kevin Samuels made it popular for the most part.
So just HVM.
I'm probably gonna fight in particular on alpha male, but that's gonna be later. That because he wants to do the vasectomy talk first. So
okay, but how do you want to define alpha male then? So we have.
I don't know. I'll ask them later because that's a whole line of questioning.
Okay. And then hypergamy. How do you guys want to define hypergamy?
Let me do one more real quick on the useful side of things, because I had a list of other things here. So it was like as far as being useful and educate, I wanted to ask the education question. The other thing is You got to be productive. Obviously, you got to be at least a productive member of society. Would that also be included in the conventional?
It is, but all of these things are
value
proxies for value. So again, I'm very productive, but it's just because people like entertainment. In another society, I would have no production.
And that's where the respect
right?
comes in,
Yeah.
because your productivity will align to some.
Yeah.
And then the other aspect of this is recognition. So people, when they see you, they understand that you are high value in some way. Like they go,
almost every human is wired for resources.
Exactly, but we're also plugging that person into a hierarchy.
Well, I think it depends on which hierarchy. Like he said before, if he goes to a mechanic shop.
That's why that's the subjective thing that we're trying.
An extreme example would be like Stephen Hawking, right? Who had motor neuron disorder, was relegated to a wheelchair, but was one of the smartest men who ever lived. That would be an example of someone who's super competent, but in other areas isn't competent. I would consider him a high value man, but you know, he couldn't walk. So that's an interesting. That's what the subjectivity of it.
All right. Cool. So I guess Alpha Male will deal